What do you want?
My father's dead.
Raish.
Assassins plan to take over Raish's organization.
Raish Al Ghul has been retired. You may call me Deathstroke.
This man wants to kill us.
Us?
Me and your son.
Son. Things have changed. She thinks you'll be better off with me.
I do fine by myself. Deathstroke killed my grandfather. He has to pay.
We don't kill. He's gone. Took the uniform, too.
I have your mother, Damien. I'll give you 48 hours before I end her suffering.
You're letting vengeance guide your actions.
It's easier my way.
Robin!
Your play, Damien.
I'll drive.
No.
I know how.
No.
Welcome, citizens of Gotham, to The Fire Rises, a Batman podcast focusing on all things The Dark Knight and the DC Universe. If you'd like to connect with the show, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, X, and Threads at tfrbatpod. And if you have thoughts, questions, comments, or even suggestions for future episodes of the show, just shoot us an email. You can send those to tfrbatpod@gmail.com. My name is Eric Carter, and I am your host, and I am joined, as always, by my partner in podcasting, Joe Fornerado. Joe, how are you, my friend?
I'm good, Eric. What's going on tonight?
Oh, as we're recording, it is Mother's Day, so happy, depending on when this releases, happy Mother's Day or happy belated Mother's Day to all the mothers of the world. But that's about it, Joe. How about you?
Yeah, same old. Enjoying, it was a nice Mother's Day weekend for us. Got to spend some time with both sides of the family and just getting winding down as this Sunday night comes to a close here. Kids are in bed, hopefully, and just ready to talk some DC Universe here.
Absolutely. And I do want to say that you cannot pick on me this time because we are on a 2-week schedule from our last episode. So we have recorded in the window.
It's funny whenever I'm like, hey man, like we got a couple days here, let's try to like bank an episode, and we end up right at the 2-week mark. Like that, I think I was like last week I was trying to get some in. It just never works out that way, but at least we got in our Sunday night recording, so that's good.
Yes. We're going to have to get that next one in because our next scheduled weekend, I'm going to be moving across the country. So we got to get it.
That's fine.
At some point.
You have headphones in the car. You can have your wife drive at that moment, and we'll just do like a mobile recording. That's fine.
Now, only issue is we drive separate vehicles when we do that. So
get like a Tesla that drives itself or something.
Yeah. On our huge budget. I'm going to put it in write it off as a podcast expense. But anyway, we are here today to discuss another DC animated film. We're in a little bit of a DC animated hot streak here, Joe. So last time we covered Batman versus Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and next time we're covering another DC animated film. But for this episode, we are talking about the 2014 animated Batman film, Son of Batman. But before we get there, Joe, take this with what you will, but we're not a news show. We don't talk about current breaking news or anything like that. But every once in a while, there's something so big that happens in the DC universe that we have to talk about it. And of course, since we last recorded, James Gunn dropped a bombshell on the world and revealed our first look at the new suit for Superman in the film Superman, which comes to us July of next year. So, Joe, this kind of came out of nowhere. I think was it early in the morning about a week ago?
It was a Monday morning. I'm almost
Monday
positive it was a
morning,
Monday
yeah.
morning. Yeah.
So I saw it and was like, huh, I wonder if the rest of the guys have saw it. So I popped it in our group chat that we have with a few other guys. And there was some interesting conversations just in that group chat. But then, it hit the internet and you know what the internet does. So to get your official thoughts out there, Joe, this is your platform. What were your thoughts on the reveal of the new Superman suit?
Well, I think it's two separate opinions here.
Mm-hmm.
I will say at first, when you first see the photo, my first reaction was, okay, let's check out the suit. And as stupid as it is, the first thing I was curious about was the trunks because that's what everyone's thinking about. And I really don't have a dog in the fight one way or the other. I don't care whether he has them or not. I was just curious. So here I am, a grown man zooming in on someone's crotch to try to see if he's got red there or not. And lo and behold, yes, he has the trunks. Um, I think the suit color looks pretty cool. Again, the photo has him kind of like battle weary a little bit, like some dust and some soot on him or whatever it might be. That's kind of messing with the colors. Maybe the lighting is a little off.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but as far as like the design of the suit, I actually like it. I don't have an issue with the suit at all. Um, but the photo, I'll be honest, at first glance, I felt like it was a weird pose to show off the suit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't think anything was wrong with the photo itself. I feel like it wasn't the best way to highlight the suit. And that was my first reaction. But I'll let you talk a little bit and then we can maybe discuss a little further together with our opinions.
Sure. I don't begrudge you the thoughts of maybe the position he's in or the battle damage because I've heard some other people say that. And to be honest with you, it took me several times looking at it and someone actually bringing it up because I didn't. I'll be honest, I did not zoom in on the crotch. I didn't realize he had trunks until you said something about it. I did not realize he had battle damage on the crest until Andy from Holy Backcast said it. So
And
yeah,
I'll be honest, I didn't notice the battle damage either. I was more just focused on the style of the suit more than even noticing that it was like dusty or whatever it might have been. Um,
yeah. So the first reaction I had when I saw it was like, and I've heard this reaction from other people as well. I was like, yeah, that's Superman.
mhm.
So it wasn't something, that I was like, you know, I guess I didn't go in and nitpick it or really pay attention to a lot of the minute details. I was just like, at first glance, it was like, yeah, that is Superman. And that
Mhm.
and that works for me. It's very much the same way when they released the first Cavill image against the
Mhm.
bank vault. I was like, yeah, that's Superman. I mean, so yeah, it works for me. And then digging into the small details, do I wish maybe the positioning, maybe he wasn't in a position where you see kind of the crumple zones at the shoulders
Mhm.
and once I looked at the trunk, you kind of see some folding of the material at the stomach and things like that. Do I wish maybe we'd have got a stand-up shot of him, just the best possible image of the suit? Sure. But I also think there's a lot of fun to this image where it's out of the ordinary of what you see of like suit reveals and things like that. So I definitely think James Gunn was having fun with this image because it's something we don't normally see. Kind of in the same vein of, when Zack Snyder released his first image of Ben Affleck's Batman, that was very unconventional, the way
Mhm.
he released it. Black and white looking down, you couldn't really see his face. It was out of the ordinary, and I appreciate that. So, yeah, first, I had a really good first reaction to it. I think a little better than than your first reaction.
Yeah, again, it's not the suit. I think because the comparisons to the Cavill suit are inevitable, that
Sure.
I wish seeing the way it bunched up didn't make for easy material for people. Like it was easy to criticize it because it did look like it didn't fit properly in the shoulder areas. And listen, all the suits bunch up to an extent. There are shots in BVS where you could see the suit kind of, folds and creases and whatever. It happens. It's not, to me, it's not a big deal. I really don't care. I think the suit looks really cool. Like you said, it looks like Superman. I'm not making a bigger deal out of this than it is. I think it was my first reaction was when I saw the shoulders being bunched up like that. I was like, oh, like why would you pick that as your reveal
Mm-hmm.
for a suit that is coming after a suit that so many people, even the people that weren't crazy about the movie, they loved that suit. So that was the only thing that really bothered me. As far as the picture itself, I had no issues with I didn't have an issue with the background or the fact that he's putting on his boots. Like that was fine. Like it was fun. You're right. It was fun. I have no issue with the actual photo. I think it's the way the photo makes the suit look that is a
Sure.
little off. Like if this was like the second photo where we still got like a good shot of him in the suit, I would have had no issues whatsoever. Again, he looks like Superman. Like I wasn't gonna hate the suit no matter what. I'm not gonna sit here and say the suit looks like crap. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with the suit. He looks like Superman. I love the S. I think the S looks really cool. We got the S already though, so I didn't need this S to be perfectly bold and colorful and whatever. I think the S with the snow on it was an awesome reveal. And
Yeah.
I think what disappointed me was this almost made me go a little bit backwards in my reaction to the suit because I think that S shot was so cool. And I loved the texture of the suit in that picture that I wish we gotten something that had my same reaction as that. But again,
Sure.
not the end of the world. Still excited for the movie. I like that Superman looks like Superman. Again, I'm the trunks thing that everyone harps on. I'm so whatever with that. It doesn't bother me one way or the other, but I do like that the red breaks up the blue in the suit. I like the contrast there.
Yeah. Well, and I was thinking the whole time we're talking about like the crumples and stuff like that you see in the shoulders. I don't know if people understand, that don't get into that minutia like we do as fans of how these
Mhm.
suits work. But you and I both have multiple hot toys, which are supposed to be the most realistic representations of these suits, and you know
And they
exactly
all
what
bunch.
happens. Yeah, if you bend an arm or
Yeah.
move a shoulder, you know what happens with
Mhm.
these suits. So
Yeah.
imagine that in life size scale.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so far as I mean, outside of the reveal picture and the positioning and all that good stuff, so the things about the suit that I really like, I like that there's a huge New 52 influence to the
Mhm.
suit. Some people may not like that, but I kind of dig the collar.
I've always liked the
Um,
collar. Yeah, I know a lot of people have
yeah,
criticized that in the past, but I'm just happy he's got the red boots.
yeah, red boots look great. The designs, I don't mind I didn't need it, but I
Mm-mm.
don't mind the designs on the arms and
Nope.
stuff like that. And yeah, so from what I understand, James Gunn has carried over his costume designer from Guardians.
Mhm.
And I know a lot of people have said that this looks like Guardian suits. Like they took the Guardian suits and they put an S on it. I don't
Eh.
fully agree with that, but I also would say, I mean, if it's the same costume designer, what did you expect? I
Yeah, like
guess.
he's going to use the material he's comfortable with. He's going to use the
Yeah.
same. I mean, I don't know. It's like a musician writing another song. He's going to have the same style to it. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, but either way, I mean, we do have the new suit, so it's out there to view. I'm sure we're going to start getting a lot more looks at it.
Mhm.
And I told you, I don't know how it works, but and Chris Stanley, cosplay Chris on YouTube, if you know who that is, he kind of echoed the same thing. I feel like maybe there was a situation change. They needed to start doing some shots outside. They posted an image because they knew it was gonna start,
Mhm.
spy pics and all that stuff. I don't know how true that is, and he didn't say he knew 100% that that was the case either. But I do think they were getting a shot out there before that started happening, so I do think we're going to start to see more of the suit. So hopefully we get some images that makes everybody happy, but that we know that's not
Yeah,
going to happen.
that's a good one.
Yeah, but we shall see. But let's move into our main event for today. But before we get there, I got to give a shout out to our partner sponsor in Organic Priced Books. Now, Organic Price Books is a small business that passes the savings along to you guys. And what they focus on, of course, is hardcovers, trade paperbacks, collected editions of the stories that we love. And it's not just DC or Marvel, it's also IDW, Boom Studios, Dynamite, any and everything that you can think of in the comic book world or graphic novels, they have it for you. And we've partnered with them. So if you go to the link in the description of this podcast and use our promo codes, the first is tfrbatpod to save you $2 off of any order. And the second, tfrbatpod ship it together to save you 5% off of any order of 3 or more books. So if you're looking for, maybe you're looking for Batman and Son, which is the influence for the movie that we're talking about today. Or if you're looking for the Batman TMNT omnibus that we talked about last time, Organic Price Books has your hookup. Go check them out. Get yourself some collected editions, save some money, and support this show as you do so. Now, Joe, I didn't tell you this before the episode, but I'm thinking of a contest here with our partnership with Organic Price Books. You and I both are looking very forward to the absolute death of the family.
Mm-hmm.
That's coming. When did we say that's coming? I always forget the date.
I'm almost positive October. Yeah.
Perfect. So we've got plenty of time to do it. So I think I'm going to work on it for the next episode to think about some rules, but I'm thinking of a contest where I'm thinking if we get some of our listeners to post their orders from Organic Price Books, they'll be entered into a contest, and I'm thinking we're going to give away one of those absolute editions of Death of the Family. So we'll keep you guys in mind, but remember that. So I'm going to have the rules put out for that next episode. So that'll be episode 87 of TFR. So keep your eyes on the download feeds, and I'll get that announced. But what do you think of that, Joe?
That sounds cool. Yeah, that was news to me. That sounds like fun.
Yeah. I thought about it before the show. I was like, yeah, I think that would be a good, since we didn't do a big giveaway last year. We'll get one going here. So keep your eyes and ears out for that, and we'll get that announced soon. But yeah, make sure you go check out Organic Priced Books. But without further ado, let's get into what we're here to talk about today, and that is the animated film Son of Batman. All right, so Son of Batman was released April 22nd, 2014, so 10 years ago. Was directed by Ethan Spalding, from a screenplay by Joe R. Lansdale, and of course, based on Batman and Son by Grant Morrison. It stars Stuart Allen as Damian Wayne, Jason O'Mara as Batman. It also has Thomas Gibson in it, Morena Baccarin. It has Sean Maher as Dick Grayson Nightwing, David McCallum as Alfred Pennyworth, and a big swing here, Joe. Giancarlo Esposito as Ra's al Ghul, which I don't think I realized until I was doing research on this episode. Did you know Giancarlo did Ra's al Ghul?
I did not. Because this was this was like the first Batman in the New 52 universe. Why do I want to say Miguel Ferrer did Deathstroke in something before he passed away? Now I'm gonna have to look that up, because that was bothering me, because I feel like he definitely played Deathstroke in something. Because I have no recollection of this actor.
Of Thomas Gibson?
Yeah, I do not remember him being Deathstroke.
Yeah, I mean, I always think of Thomas Gibson when if Dharma and Greg comes up, you think Thomas Gibson, because that's the first, and that's That's dating me probably, but but I remember him from Dharma and Greg. So I don't
Mhm.
know. I don't know if there. I don't remember
I
another Deathstroke
This
actor
has to
from.
be. Oh, so he was in Teen Titans Judas Contract.
Mm,
Okay, so
okay,
my bad. Yeah, I was just remembering that wrong.
sure. And then Marina Baccarin, of course, from Deadpool fame.
Hmm.
So
And Gotham.
there's and Gotham, yeah,
Keep it in the DC universe there.
of course, Gotham. Uh, but anyway, on this voice cast, since we're already talking about the voice cast, I want to start here. Stuart Allen
Hmm.
played Damien throughout the New 52 run of animated films. And he did such a good job. We were talking last episode about the Damien from Batman versus TMNT and
Yeah,
how it takes a minute to kind of adjust to who's playing Damien and that different voice. And I think it's because Stuart Allen kind of set the tone for what Damian Wayne sounds like.
I agree. I think that is what it is because it's the only voice we ever heard for Damien,
Mhm. And
to my knowledge.
as cliche as it may sound, I mean, when I read Batman comics with Damian in it, Stuart Allen's the voice I hear.
Yeah.
I mean,
And I don't want to take away from him, but I don't know if it's because of like by default, because that's just the voice I always heard. But he does a great job regardless, whether it's that reason or not. I think he does a great job. And I think that's why, well, like you said, we talked about the Ninja Turtles episode. That voice threw me for a loop, and it upon rewatches, it's fine.
hmm yeah. And even like the Super Sons movie that we got a couple years ago, the CGI film,
Mhm.
that voice, I think because it's so much more similar to what Stuart Allen does,
Yes.
it's got that cockiness, that arrogance to it. Um, it that one didn't even give me pause,
Hmm.
but the different version in like the Batman versus TMNT did. But I think it's because Stuart Allen, I mean, it was the first one we got. We got him for so long, but at the end of the day, he did such a good job with it that I think it resonates. And not on the same scale, much smaller scale, but in a similar way that like Conroy does for Batman. Because I would say you think Conroy when you think Batman, but Stuart
Yeah.
Allen is who I think of when I think Damien.
Yeah, I agree. I think it just, like I said, because it was the first one, and at this point, I do think it is the best one we've gotten. I think also, like we've talked about with the Ninja Turtles movie, it was a different version of Damien, where this he depicts, and even honestly, Super Sons, it's more of the more positive Damien by that point, where we're getting him right out of the League of Assassins in this one, and he is a little pain in the you know what in this movie, and that's why Stuart Allen does a great job depicting that. And to kind of transition from there to Jason O'Mara, this was the first time that I think his voice really started to work for me because this was after Justice League War, which I believe was the first one he did. And I don't remember if Throne of Atlantis was before or after this one, but I feel like this is the one where it's like, okay, he's getting into it now. He's getting more comfortable in the role, and maybe we're getting more comfortable with the way he's doing it. He's doing his own thing, and I think it's working really well now. And I think the way he converses with Damien and Alfred in this is done really well. And I think maybe that's what it is we're finally getting those relationships in the Bat family in this movie. And I think that's what made his performance work really well.
So yeah, this was O'Mara's second outing. Throne
Mhm.
of Atlantis was after this one.
Okay.
So and this, I mean, yeah,
Because
I
I
think
was not crazy about his voice in Justice League War the first time we saw it.
yeah, and I mean, I think that was that the really the first big animated film Batman centric that we had gotten
Yeah.
after Conroy.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely makes sense. I don't remember my reaction to Amara's voice from
Well,
War.
I'm sorry, this was after Under the Red Hood, obviously.
Oh yeah, Bruce Greenwood. Yep,
Yeah.
of course. But I mean, as a continuing, universe, we had Conroy for so long, and he
Yes.
was the go-to. Like if it was back to back or continuation, I don't remember my reaction from his voice in Justice League War, but I do remember like the Batman Robin trilogy in the New 52.
Mhm.
I think is my favorite set of movies from that universe. And I think it is because we do get a full trilogy of
Mhm.
stories, and it's one of the only characters in the New 52 universe that we got that with. And it turns into, Batman and Robin into a Bat Family saga, which I really enjoyed. So, and O'Mara and Stuart Allen as Robin cemented that for me because, again, is O'Mara Conroy? Of course not, but he's a really good Batman voice,
And
and
he's
those
doing his
two,
own thing, which is nice too. He's not
yeah,
trying to be Conroy.
exactly, and those two work really well off of each other.
Mhm. And Alfred is great in this too. I love Alfred's little
Yes,
swarmy comments about Damien in this. Some of my favorite humor is obviously from, I think that's always the case, is Alfred.
is
Um,
Alfred's one-liners.
before we get too much into the film itself, but one of my favorites is when Dick is just going to town on Damien and he is about to just curse like crazy, and Alfred goes, "Master Dick," like,
Yeah, that still got a laugh from me years
yep.
later.
That's still one of my favorite lines in the movie where he's something about he's about to drop an F bomb is what he's doing. And I don't remember what he was saying, like shut the F up or something to that effect. And yeah, Alfred has to stop him mid-sentence. It was really good.
Yeah, for sure. Well, since you brought up the story, well, before we get there, let's talk about the animation because man, this felt like putting on just a cozy jacket, Yeah, I mean, it's been so long since we left this universe now, and we kind of have the I don't know if you maybe call it the Archer style of the current
Yeah.
universe. Um, but man, and I know it kind of became the popular complaint about the art style because it stuck around for so long. But going back to this movie, I really enjoyed this art style. And I like these character designs.
It's ironic, isn't it? Because I think people complained about this art style so much when it was happening. Maybe they felt it was too anime, maybe they felt it was too bland. Um, But man, going from the Archer style to this, and I don't hate the Archer style, but I definitely prefer this. And you're right, Warm Blanket, it was like it's weird because it feels too new to say nostalgic vibes, but like I did kind of feel a little bit of nostalgia for this. Like I mean, this is you said five it's already 10 years old, which is insane.
Mm,
Um, because it does feel so much newer than that. Which we were lucky to get so many films in such a short time when you think about it. But yeah, I like this style. I think it was a good blend of like trying to replicate the Jim Lee style because that's what they were going for with the new 52 stuff. I I just think the designs were, you know, they were just straightforward designs. They were going with the designs we know and love from, I mean, yeah, they were doing their kind of new 52 spin on it. I think Superman had the collar in this, that kind of thing.
mhm.
Obviously not in this film, but in this era of films. And yeah, I think the animation in this is really good. I like the style.
Yeah, the only thing I will say that bugged me throughout the new 52 films is so Batman's ears curve backwards in these
I'm looking at
films.
it right now. I never noticed that before.
Yeah, that's the only thing that bugs me is his ears kind of curve back.
Never
So,
noticed it before until you just said it, and I just happened to be on a screen where it perfectly showed it, and I've never noticed it. Never even thought about it before, but okay.
well, I apologize because now you're never going to be able to unsee it.
Yeah, it's not going to bother me at all. I can tell you that.
Okay, well, good, good. But yeah, so far as the rest, I really really like this art style. So, and that's not any shot at the current art style we have. But yeah, so let's get into the story here. Now, Joe, what I really enjoy is we get a very good proper introduction to Damien and how he was raised and what his background story is through where we open the film because we open it in the lair or the compound of the League of Assassins.
Mhm.
And we know that Ra's al Ghul is grooming Damien. We get that early on. He's grooming Damien to be his future because he's his grandson. And we have Talia there. And there's an attack on the compound. Which I always thought with this movie, I think this is a really exciting opening to the film. This battle at the League of Assassins compound. I will say there's a sequence where Talia she fights up to this tower to help with the battle, and there's this like minigun, but it shoots arrows.
Yeah, is it called a turret? I don't know why that's what I was thinking. Something like that. Yeah.
I've never seen anything like this, but man, it's like the never-ending supply of arrows in this thing.
I have no issues with it. I have no issues with it. It's cool because it's like guns are bad, but this is completely fine, even though there's no difference whatsoever. It's probably shooting as many arrows per second as, a machine gun would. And but it's just a cool play on the League of Assassins old school way of doing things, but still with a new school spin. I thought it was really cool. I love the opening scene of this movie. I love how grand scale it is. Like you could see this being the prologue of a film.
Mhm.
Like if they want to introduce Damien in The Brave and the Bold, man, this opening scene in the League of Assassins, hideout or whatever would be perfect. You could see this being this huge, massive, action scene to start a movie and get everyone hooked right away.
Well, it's almost like a Nolan-ish,
drop you
opening.
right into it right away. Yeah,
yeah, and I love that you find out that it's Deathstroke that's attacking, and the twist that it's Ubu that is the right hand man to Deathstroke. I thought that was clever because you never see that.
No, and they don't tell you who Ubu is either.
No, I mean they assume you know.
Yeah, they talk about it a little bit later on, saying he worked with them and all that. But they treat you like you know these characters when you watch these movies, which I appreciate because obviously we all do. We know we don't need to see origins for every character or be spoon-fed what's going on. Give us the action, give us the character moments, and just drop us in the world and let's go. I think for a live action new movie, you probably got to give a little bit more than that because you're going to try to appeal to the general audience. But I don't think you have to do too much more than this. I think it works.
Yeah, I agree with that. Now, what I do find interesting is because this was so early in this universe, I find it interesting that they take Ra's al Ghul off the board as a villain almost immediately.
Does he ever come back?
Not that I remember. And I could be wrong about that, but not that I remember.
Yeah, I mean, we know Talia comes back. Obviously she's not dead, but she comes back. It kind of caps off the trilogy with Bad Blood in that regard. Oh, you know what's funny? We call it a trilogy. What's the second Batman movie?
In this universe?
Yeah.
Batman versus Robin.
It's not a trilogy because Hush is in this universe.
Well, it's like the Bat Family universe.
Oh, okay.
Or Bat Family trilogy.
Okay,
but
Hush
is very just Batman focused.
Yes, but I was thinking there's only 3 movies in the New 52 universe that are Batman focused, and there's not. There's more.
Yeah, there is.
Okay, but I don't know. That was a side tangent. I didn't mean to go down because I was thinking before, like, yeah, Batman got a lot of movies in this universe, and like Superman didn't get any until Death of Return. We got like 1 Wonder Woman movie, so there wasn't really much more. I think we were on a run of like a Batman movie, a Justice League movie, a Batman movie, a Justice League movie for a while.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think what's cool about taking, and this was always, I know we end up going on Snyder tangents a lot, but this was always a criticism of Snyder for like taking major characters off the board in his movies. But I'm sorry, I should have specified Zack Snyder. But if they knew they weren't going to use him going forward and they wanted to just take you on a ride with the whole Talia and Damien thing, I think it sets the stakes right away, and I think it gets you going, and you know where you're, they're not messing around. They're going to do their own thing, and I'm pretty sure Roz dies in the comics storyline, and then eventually he does come back. He's resurrected, I mean, nobody really stays dead or anything in these comics. It takes a while sometimes, but they come back eventually.
Sure.
Um, but yeah, I like that kind of stuff. And I think having them die right in front of the Lazarus pit, which I do have to say, I love the fact that like wherever they are, there just is a Lazarus pit. So like they build their hideouts all the time over a Lazarus pit. You notice that like there's a Lazarus pit in the middle of the ocean, apparently.
Yeah, yeah.
At the end, like it's fine. Just go with it. Like don't think too much about it.
Of course.
But I do like that, he dies right in front of the Lazarus pit. And they set the rules. His body's too far gone to come back. They do set that up pretty early with the rules of the Lazarus pit, which is fine. The one thing I question with the Lazarus pit in this movie, and I'm kind of jumping to the end. So you can go in, like the bat suit protects him from the Lazarus pit, apparently. When Batman goes in at the end.
Mm-hmm.
As long as it doesn't touch his skin, he's good.
I guess.
Or
I
if he's not dead or almost
there's,
dead,
there's really nothing to repair with Batman or nothing to alter at that point.
I guess I still wouldn't go in there voluntarily.
Well, I don't know. Yeah, that's movie logic.
Yeah.
But so we do have, of course, Roz dies. They cannot get him to the Lazarus pit in time. Of course, Damien does try. And at this point, it's decided by Talia that, and I love this. It's time to meet your father. That's what she tells him. And boom, we go to the opening credits. We go into the score, which I will say, I don't know if the current films do it. I'm pretty sure they do, but maybe it's not such a big thing. But I remember these coming. Each of these movies got a actual score, and you can look them up online. You can listen to them.
Oh yeah.
This one has a really good score, and it gives you a good opening title sequence there. And then we go into the introduction of Batman to his son Damien. And I will say there's some blood in this movie. There's some violence, and there's some innuendo, I guess, because they make it pretty clear that the date rape between Talia and Batman happened. So
yeah.
what did you think about that in an animated film?
So the innuendo, they don't come out and say anything graphic, or I mean, I would say Talia's outfit is pretty graphic. I'm not gonna lie there. But I don't think they do anything too over the top with how Damien was conceived, for lack of a better term. But I think you can use your imagination or just kind of go with it. Whatever they do, they do. But like they didn't do a flashback or anything, which I was actually thinking about. It would have been pretty cool to see a flashback. That's such a huge part of the comics that the Batman and Roz, like Neil Adams always tells about it, Batman and Roz with their shirts off, sword fighting, and they could have totally done like a riff on that combined with the story of I want to say it was like Son of the Demon, or when trying to remember, there's the Demon trilogy that I think was by Mike Barr, and I'm gonna get killed for being wrong on this. But all that stuff where Damien was first actually considered to be part of canon that, then Grant Morrison went back and fixed with. But it would have been really cool to have a flashback that actually showed all that stuff. Just, a quick 5-minute thing would have been pretty fun. But they chose not to do that, which is fine. It's not the story that they're telling. They're telling the current story. They didn't want to fixate on Roz because Roz doesn't mean anything right now going forward. But yeah, the blood in this movie, in that opening scene, just wow. And again, we talked about it in some of the other movies. Like, these are the reasons why I'm shocked we get R ratings in these animated movies, because it's so easy to get a PG-13 on stuff like this. Like, do you really need to go that much further than this movie with the blood and stuff? I mean,
I mean, you see Damien directly stick his sword into Slade's eye,
Yeah.
and you
I
see the
want to say
blood
there's a
shoot out.
I mean, we were talking about Batman TMNT. There's decapitation in it that's subtly shown. Um, yeah, there's a lot of blood in this one. Like it's not subtle at all.
Mm-mm.
And they still get away with the PG-13 somehow. And part of me wonders, like, were they getting away with so many PG-13s that eventually the MPA was like, all right, guys, enough. Like, we can't keep putting out these PG-13 movies and kids are buying them. And, maybe they started to be a little harsher. I don't know.
Well,
But
they put out the Killing Joke, and that
in the
just
kids
ruined it for
section,
everybody.
yes, but who was it that said like that was in the kids section of Target? I remember when it
I,
first came out. It's like,
I
oh
can't.
man, that's not a good idea.
No, no. But yeah, I mean, from here, of course, I love that we get, Damian going with Bruce back to Gotham, and we really just get him being integrated into the everyday life of not only Bruce Wayne but Batman. And you get that growing pains between Batman discovering he has a son
Mhm.
and Damian trying to adjust to being in this wildly different life. Because Batman has to teach him along the way. It's not okay to do the things that you've been brought up to do. It's not okay to kill.
Mhm.
And it's not okay to be the type of person that you were raised to be. But at the same time, they do go a long way in establishing Damien's character and that he's a very intelligent kid. I mean, for his age, he's brilliant.
Mhm.
There's that moment in the boardroom when when Bruce is answering to his people that work at Wayne Industries or
Yeah, I
Wayne
guess the board of
Enterprises.
directors or whatever they may
Yeah.
be. Yeah.
And they walk into his office and Damien is there. And Damien flips a computer around and he's telling him things about his business and what's wrong with Wayne Enterprises and what needs to be fixed.
Someone
And
skimming profits or something. Yeah.
yeah, and although it pisses Bruce off that he snuck out of Wayne Manor and done all this, it does show the brilliance of Damian Wayne.
Mhm.
So, and I know that you're not a Damian fan, and that's okay. But as a Damian fan myself, I love that because you do want to make sure that you honor the character as it is.
Well, his arc in these movies, all the way up to Justice League Dark Apocalypse War,
Mm-hmm.
is great. Him as a character in these movies made me even care about him at all. And
Mm-hmm.
then when we got into Super Sons and the comics and stuff, that really won me over. But I think what was so cool about Damien is like they really did play the long game with um wanting getting people to like him. Like you weren't supposed to like him in the beginning. Ironically, he was supposed to just kind of be liked and then sacrifice himself and die, and that was supposed to be the end of it. And then DC brings him back, and he's a mainstay now. And it's not that I never liked him, it's that he's my third favorite Robin. Like there's
Sure.
if you're gonna start, you know, a movie with Batman, I don't want Damian as the Robin. I want Tim or, at the very least Dick and build up to that. So at this time frame when Damian was in the forefront of almost every story, it did kind of get frustrating because Tim was the one that always got shortchanged. And it became like I'm not supposed to like Damien because I much prefer Tim, which isn't fair. It's just they were trying to go closer to what the comics were doing because kids, it goes back to like when The Dark Knight came out and you would pick up a Batman comic and Dick was Batman. And people
Mm-hmm.
were like, well, you're not capitalizing on the movies. You're not capitalizing on all this stuff. So they should be kind of in sync. And it makes sense that when they were making these movies, they're like, well, why should we put Tim as Robin when in the comics, Damian is? So let's have Dick as Nightwing and just kind of jump to Damian being Robin. And I get it. And they had a great plan here with what they were going to do with the character. And he does such a good job, you know, even just in this story alone, he comes a long way. And then going from this to Batman vs. Robin, which is another different type of arc for him. And then uh if I remember correctly, Bad Blood was a really emotional thing between him and his mom, with his mom just being, the horrible person that she is. Where in this story, she kind of plays off of like she's obviously evil, but she's not the villain of this story. She's
No,
kind of indifferent in this one,
it's almost
which is
like in
not like the book, if I remember
no,
correctly.
in a subtle way, she's almost nurturing in this movie, which is not the case going forward in the other two films or in the comic, as you said. So yeah, interesting take on Talia. But I want to say this because I know you and I were just discussing whether or not people you're a Damien fan or I want to say just this once in defense of Damian Wayne because he is I love Damien and I know it's very popular to beat up and bash on Damien, but I'll say this: the character was introduced 37 years ago as an infant. He's been in the comics as Damien for 18 years.
Mm-hmm.
I know some comic purists may not dig Damien, but let me promise you, he would not have lasted 18 years if he was not a popular character. They'd
No,
have
I
Jason
can't
Todded
disagree with
him
that.
years ago.
I can't disagree with that. And what's even more fascinating is he's already been Robin for 18 years. Tim was introduced in what, 89?
Something like that, yeah.
He was Robin till really 2012 was when they kind of screwed him with the new 52. So
Yeah.
Tim is already, I mean, Damien's already pretty close to that. And
Hmm.
again, it's a shame because I do love Tim. I know it's funny because everyone always like there are a lot of people that love Dick Grayson as Robin, and I think the reason I never have that as an answer is because in the comics, I've never read Dick Grayson as Robin.
Unless
I'm
it was a
not,
throwback story.
yeah, and they're not very common.
No.
Um, we don't have a lot of modern stories with Dick as Robin. So I've always, preferred Tim as Robin and Dick as Nightwing, just because I like reading the modern stories more than I like reading stories from the 60s and the 70s. But yeah, I mean, I have no issues with Damien anymore because I think he has earned that position because he's he's not just a carbon copy of the other Robins. He's completely different. And they don't even use the fact that he's Batman's son as a crutch. He has so much more going for him than that. And I
Hmm.
think that's what makes the character so much fun.
Absolutely. And there's so much there, and I know we're on a tangent now, but there's so much there that I feel DC would be missing without Damian because
Mhm.
Super Sons, the relationship between him and John Kent is awesome. It's
Yeah.
fantastic. So yeah, but I'll get off my soapbox about about Damien. But some of the things that I love about this movie, I love seeing the first encounter between Dick Grayson, Nightwing, and Damien.
Mhm.
The fight in the park that you get kind of it cuts before you see the fight. And then you just see Nightwing has got him, trussed up
Tied
to a
up.
light
Yeah.
yeah, to a light pole or whatever, and he's calling Batman because this kid says he's your son. What's up with
Yeah.
this? But I've told you before, one of my favorite dynamics in DC Comics is the dynamic between Dick Grayson and Damian Wayne.
Yeah.
Because when we got to the part of the comics where Dick Grayson took up the mantle and he was Batman, Damian was his Robin, and I love those stories. I love, especially like Black Mirror. I love seeing those two as Batman and Robin. If it's not going to be Bruce Wayne, I want Dick Grayson in the cowl. And as flip side to Bruce Wayne's character as Dick Grayson is, it's the same dynamic. It's flipped
Mhm.
of Dick Grayson to Damian Wayne. And seeing that introduction in this movie and seeing them take each other on is awesome. And I love that they were really cheeky and they put the fight in the end credits of the movie.
Oh, I don't even think I noticed that. Oh, with the little clips, like as they're
Yeah, so in the end
wow.
credits, during the credits, you see the fight between Damian and Nightwing.
Yeah. But you see it in motion? No, it's just little like pictures, right?
I think so, yeah. I mean, I didn't watch it this time. I just remembered watching it in the past. But yeah,
Never
you
even
get, I
occurred to
think
me,
you
but you're
get
right.
little
I think it's like
snippets.
little snippets of it. Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah. But yeah, so introducing you don't get much of the Bat family, but you do get Nightwing here. So what did you think of the tit for tat? And you've already mentioned it with the joke with Alfred, but what did you think of the Dick Grayson and Damian introduction.
I love their dynamic. I think it's so much fun, and it's just their first meeting, and Damien always just wanting to throw it in Dick's face that I'm his actual son. You're nothing to him. I'm his blood. You're not like I'm gonna beat you. I'm Robin. You're not even worth his 2 minutes anymore. Like you're done. Like it's me now. You don't matter. I'm gonna beat you. I'm gonna, whoop your butt. And I love he's just a little shit. He really is. He just you want to smack the kid, but he's got skills too. So like I love that, like, yes, Nightwing gets the best of him, he ties him up, whatever, but he's beat up pretty good. He got him with a bunch of shots.
He took his licks.
Yeah, and just the mouthing off between the two of them is so much fun. And I love when Nightwing is talking, or Dick is talking to Alfred, and the stupid lines like, all the years he preached to me about using protection, and this is what we get from him.
Yeah.
Like I love that kind of humor. Like it's so stupid, but it's fun because that's also when you get to see the father-son dynamic between Dick and Bruce a little bit, like a peek behind the curtain at that, which is cool.
The idea that Bruce Wayne would
Is
have
telling Dick, yeah,
the birds
of
and
the
the
bees
beanstalk.
talk.
Yeah, is awesome. I love that.
Yeah, really fun. Like that's the stuff that you don't get in comics. Like that's not important for the comics, but in a movie like this, it's really cool to see that kind of stuff. And like to be Talia of all people, Dick is like, come on, Bruce, what are you doing?
Yeah. Now, of course, the main subject of this movie is Damian versus Deathstroke.
Mhm.
And we do get there eventually because it's this whole set piece of Kirk Langstrom and his Man-Bat formula, and of course the new League of Assassins, quote unquote, with Deathstroke as the figurehead, is looking to use this Man-Bat formula. This is a part, and I don't know about you, this is straight from the comic. This was in Batman and Son. It's a part that I always find a little unnecessary. Like the Man-Bat ninjas is something I'm never like, I don't mind it, but it's like if there was a part that I could disregard, it's this. Because I feel like you could get to Damian, the League of Assassins, and Deathstroke without the Man-Bat stuff.
Yes, and it's been a week since I've watched this movie. What was the end game there? What was Deathstroke's reasoning for having
basically
Man-Bats?
he wanted super soldiers to continue his mission,
and it doesn't really go anywhere because like the fight between them and the Man-Bats is pretty anticlimactic. Like they just start shooting them in the sky with the Batwing, and that's pretty much it, right?
Yeah, with the anti
with the anti-serum, yeah, that they develop right after they start hatching, or whatever, being born, whatever they're doing. So yeah, you're right, it's not necessary, but it was just a way to maybe have henchmen in the film where Dick has something to do at the end because they wanted to fixate on Damian versus Deathstroke and then Bruce taking care of Talia. I don't know. But yeah, it's kind of background. It's like the subplot. Like that's not what is important in this story, and they maybe could have put more into something else. But again, that is from the comics, so maybe they just wanted to introduce it somehow. You could also argue that like this was the time where Deathstroke was everywhere. Correct me if I'm wrong. Like this had to have been right around the time of Arkham Origins. Deathstroke, I feel like Deathstroke was like a big thing at this moment where everyone wanted to use Deathstroke as the main villain. And Deathstroke is not in the comic from what I remember, right?
I don't think so.
I think the villain is Talia or Ra's, and then Ra's dies towards the end of the comic. It's been a long time since I've read it. It is a Grant Morrison. Not a huge fan of it, to be honest with you. I will say that is probably one of the better ones that he's written that I really do somewhat enjoy. But I do not remember Deathstroke being a part of that story. So I think they were trying to set up Deathstroke as a character in this universe so they could eventually get to the Judas Contract, which makes sense because that was a great movie in this universe, and that's obviously a classic story. So it does make sense to introduce him a little bit prior.
And that's the funny thing to me. So the part of the book that wasn't there, Deathstroke, I enjoy about this movie.
Mhm.
And the part that was there with the man bats, I'm not so big on.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
and
it's a weird dynamic there.
oh yeah, and listen, we've never been shy about how we're not crazy about Grant Morrison, um, as a writer, not as a person. I I have no and some of his stuff is really good. Like I like his ideas. Like I think this was a great idea. I think a lot of his stuff is a little out there, but I have fun reading a lot of his stuff. It's just I'll get to a point, excuse me, and I'll be like, oh, okay, I don't need this. Let me get back to whatever else I was reading. And it seems like you get kind of, hit or miss there. But yeah, I think they do a really good job of making this a movie that was adapted and not straightforward.
Yep. I
I
agree.
think that's the best thing I can say about this movie is as someone who really doesn't go back to reading Batman and Son very much. I do own it. Um, we were actually talking before we recorded. I knew I owned it, but I wasn't sure if it was part of the Black Glove Deluxe Edition, and it is. So that's how I own it. And it's not something I really go back to very much. But I do like this movie a lot. I think because it does introduce Damian in this universe, it's the first Batman movie in this universe. And I think it's a good setup for everything else to come too with Damian. Um,
Mhm.
it's hard. I don't know if I could rank the Batman movies in this universe because I feel like this was the time where I felt like all the movies in the Batman films in this universe were just good. I don't want to say any of them to me were great or like the ones I like can't wait to go back and rewatch. Um, but they were telling a long game story, and I think that was what made them work.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think because I believe I covered Batman Bad Blood on this show with Matt Hewlin.
Mhm.
And I want to say I said then, and it's something that I still believe. Are any of these films my favorite Batman animated films? No, but I do love having a trilogy of Bat family movies that
Yeah.
is Damian and and Batman centric. So that's one thing. Like I can always go back to these because I love having a 3-part story I can watch back to back.
They're like you said, like comforting. Like I think that's what they
Mhm.
are because they're just this is gonna sound really derogatory. Like they're just there. Like
Yeah,
they're fun, good Batman stories, almost like episodic in nature, where you could just kind of throw them on and oh yeah, I remember this one. Okay, this is the one with this, or like, but they're
hmm
not. To me, they're not. They're nowhere near the level of like an Under the Red Hood, where it has so many layers to it, and so much that's really gonna let you sink your teeth into it. But they're good. They're just not on. I always wanted them to get to that great point, and they just never did. But I think these are good to very good. They're
yeah.
they're consistently fine. Like it's hard to really criticize them like that, but that's what they are to me. They're fine. They're there. Like I don't
Well,
know.
since you're talking about criticisms, let me give you my biggest critique of the movie. Um, I understand why they did it because, like you said earlier, they branched it off into 3 kind of directions at the end of the movie.
Mhm.
There was Dick Grayson taking on all the man bats
Yeah.
in the Batwing. There was Damian taking on Deathstroke, which
Yes.
makes sense because that's how the movie started. That's how we want to end it.
The
Damian
movie is
versus
called Son of Batman. It's his movie.
yes.
Yeah.
And then there's that branch where Batman is trying to save Talia.
Mhm.
He is so despondent over Talia being killed or, almost killed or whatever she was that he's
Mhm.
got to take her to the Lazarus pit. This is the one part of the movie that I know why they did it because they wanted Damien to be alone to take on
Yeah.
Deathstroke. Get
I
it.
know where you're going though. Like logically.
I don't think it makes sense that Batman would let his son go off to fight Deathstroke by himself to tend to Talia.
Or on
That
that
part,
step, throw her in the Lazarus pit, get the heck back to Damien.
yeah,
The time doesn't match up perfectly, but it's movie time. Like one
yeah.
thing could always take longer than another, and they kind of jive together. And
But it's
you're
like
right.
he's not even thinking about his son whatsoever in that moment.
Well, so they show him look back and try to decide. They do.
Yeah.
I
I get
just
yeah.
literally I happen to be at that spot right now, and it does. He's holding Talia, and he kind of looks over at Damien like, "Oh, what do I do?" And then he goes and puts Talia in the pit. And again, Damien just went to go to Deathstroke. They have a huge balls to the wall fight for how long? Bruce
Yeah.
is still just chilling with almost dead Talia. Like they could have sped it up a little bit and he could have gotten back, but he's completely making sure that Talia is okay. And
Yeah.
that's one of those things where that's that code that everyone loves. Batman's got to save everybody. Well, what's more important? Saving the freaking psycho that, does all this crazy stuff all the time anyway, or saving your
Your
son?
son. Yeah.
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 But then the argument is, oh, he trusts his son to save himself. Yeah, okay, whatever.
Yeah. I don't think, in reality, I don't think he would have known his son's skills to that level
And it's Deathstroke.
yet.
It's not like he's not going
Yeah.
up against the standard
Yeah.
villain.
But having said that, it's not something that I'm going to get so caught up in that it ruins the movie for me, because it doesn't. It's every time I see that part, I'm like, I don't think this is what Bruce would do, but okay.
Yeah, you're right. You got to go with it. It's one of those things where it's movie logic. I don't
Yeah.
even. It's not even as bad as saying it's movie logic. It's just it's the story they needed to tell. They needed to see Damian versus Deathstroke. If it's Batman and Damian versus Deathstroke, as cool as that would be to see, that's not the story that's being told here.
Yeah. Now, from that, going to my favorite part of the movie, because my favorite part of the movie is actually right at the end. Um, because I'm a sucker for when Damien makes the right choice. And we see it a lot. We talked about it in like the Super Sons. We've talked about it several times. But I love at the end of the movie, he has the choice to go back to his old lifestyle, the lifestyle that he's talked about throughout the movie, that's how things should be done. This is how you're supposed to do it. And he's given the choice at the end to go back with Talia and rejoin the League of Assassins, or to be Robin and to be brought up by Bruce and do things the right way. And he makes the choice to go with Batman. I love that moment. I love that he is pitted between his mother and father, and he makes a choice that he thinks is right. I love that. And it's almost in this one story, you get a little bit of a redemption arc for Damien as a character. So
that's where like I feel like he might have taken a little step back when we get into Batman vs. Robin. But for this story, you're right. And I actually thought you were talking about the part right before that when he has a chance to kill Deathstroke and he stops and says, "No, I'm my father's son too."
Well, that as well, and that leads into the moment at
exactly.
the end.
Well,
but yes,
the ending is confusing because like the mother's, obviously Talia wants him to come with her, and he says, "As you wish, mother." But I guess she can tell that he doesn't truly want to go back with her, and he wants to go back with Bruce, and that's where you wonder, like, okay, is Talia so? At that point, is that what turns Talia? Because is she so betrayed by her son at this moment that now she like wants to kill her son? Like, because that's what it leads to.
But
that's what it leads to in Bad Blood, where she is the most evil of evils in that movie. I mean, it's horrible what she does in that movie with Damien. So that's something I thought about while watching this one, thinking about that.
Well, not only that, but Batman denies her at the end of this movie as well.
Yes.
Because she asks him, "Come with me. Let's let's
the
build a better world."
Yeah. He says, "No, the only way to build a better world is to burn the League of Assassins down," or something to that effect.
Yeah. To disband it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do think you're on a good path there. I think that's not only Batman denying her, but her son denying her as well. Probably drove her over the edge there.
And I will say, like, to your point, like that was your favorite part of the movie. I will say the one thing these films do really well is when I watch one, I want to keep watching them.
Mm-hmm.
What I was like, so I actually thought about like, do I want to watch this one first or do I want to start with Justice League War and just go right through them all? Because I do have a lot of fun with this universe, and there are some hiccups along the way, but for the most part, I can watch every one of them and have a good time. And I love Apocalypse War. Like, I think it's awesome.
Hmm.
It is insanity what they did with that movie. Like, I just have so much fun with that movie. The hard part for me is it's hard for me to just throw that movie on because I want to watch everything leading up to it. But
Yeah.
I do truly love that movie, and the way that they picked the characters to lead the end of that movie, and how
Yeah.
that goes. And I think to start with like this movie in the Batman world with Damian, and he's the focal point of that movie, with the, the resistance at the end when the Justice League is incapacitated and all that. Like, I think that they do a really good job here in this universe of getting you to want to keep going and be along for the ride, because there's a lot of fun in this universe. And I'm glad they got to end it the way they did, but I do miss having this continuity, which is ironic because at the time we were like, oh, let's get more standalones, let's get more standalones. And looking back, we were pretty blessed with this.
Yeah. And to your point, I would say that this entire universe of these films is consistently pretty good.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think
pretty much the same thing I said about the Batman films can go across the board with all the rest of them.
Yeah, because I don't think I was looking through the list a few minutes ago. I don't think there's any of those movies in this universe where I look at and go, nah, I just really don't like that movie.
Yeah.
Which I can't say that about this current universe, because there's some I can say currently I just don't like.
And I don't, I can't say I dislike some of the movies in the new universe, but to me,
Joe,
there were
World.
more. Oh, I totally forgot about. See, I forgot about that one. Forgot about that one completely. I could skip it easily. I think the thing that's frustrating with this compared to the new universe, or the new universe compared to this, is that the misses were bigger misses, where they were trying to do way too much in the new universe and contain like more tight stories. And now, as we're going through Crisis on Infinite Earths, it seems like they're filling in the gaps in this 3-part epic movie that we're getting now.
Yep.
And it's like, no, you didn't have to do that. You could have just made stories along the way. And it's weird to think that they ended this chapter to go to that one. But you would think they would say, "Oh, you know what was really like what worked and what didn't work with that universe. Let's do what didn't work." Like, why?
Yeah.
Like, why did they feel they needed to make it? And this, we were going on a lot of tangents here, but I wanted to say this to basically complement the old New 52 universe, because I feel like the new universe, it's like they started out wanting to tell cool stories, but they wanted everything to tie in together too much, and they ended up shortchanging story for like a long continuity, or to get to Crisis on Infinite Earths. I don't
Mhm.
know. Everything led to Crisis, where in this they still told really good contained stories that still led into, you know, Judas Contract and Teen Titans versus Justice League and um Apocalypse War. Like, all that stuff made sense and really paid off in the end, where I'm hoping Crisis Part 3 does that, but so far it seems very muddy or muddled. Like, I don't know. It's
And
so
we'll talk about that soon.
yeah, I think that just to ramble and say all that for no reason other than to compliment how this new universe started off with Justice League War and then this. And Justice
Yeah.
League War is one I wanted to cover. I don't know if we're going to get to it or not, because that was also the same year as this one, correct?
Yeah, we'll see if we can get it. I'm sure we'll
Yeah.
have some opportunity.
Because that was one that, again, like, people weren't crazy about any of these movies, but now looking back, we had a lot of fun with them.
Yeah. But with that being said, any final thoughts on Son of Batman here, Joe?
Um, it is a really good Batman and Damian story, and an origin for Damian Wayne, as he was portrayed in the comics. I think it's a great adaptation that took what it wanted to but told its own story. I've rambled enough about God knows what for the last, however many minutes and gone on tangents and everything, all to say that I really do enjoy this movie, but I wish it was a little bit more um bold or did something took more risks maybe. I think that was might have been an issue I had with a lot of these movies is I felt like they played everything pretty safe, which allowed us to enjoy almost every movie to an extent.
Mhm.
But again, it's a good Batman movie.
Yeah, and on the flip side of that, for me, I will say, this being, I have a soft spot for this one because it's the first time I got to see Damien
Mhm.
in motion media on screen, in animated form, yes, but on screen, and I will always love it for being the introduction of Stuart Allen as Damien because again, that's the voice I hear when I read comics with Damien. And I do think, like with the death of Ra's al Ghul early on, I do think it was a bold move to do that. So I
Mhm.
do think they took some risks. Was the storytelling kind of straightforward? Yes, but I think it had a lot of good moments between Damien and Bruce, and Damien and Alfred, and Damien and Dick Grayson. So for that, I do have a soft spot for it, and it fits within that window of those three films that I get a Bat Family trilogy and really enjoy. So yeah, having said all that, it's one that I do enjoy going back to. It's not one that I go back to often, but when I do, kind of like you said, I want to watch the next one. So that's always a feather in the cap for not only this film, but this universe of movies. So yeah, but
Did you see what Batman film in this universe came out in 2019, 5 years ago?
oh, was it Hush?
Yes, it was.
We'll
That might
talk.
be a fun one to cover. It might
We'll
be a
talk.
fun one to cover. Yeah, we'll
We'll
see.
talk about it. But we'll go ahead and wrap it up for Son of Batman there, but we're not quite ready to leave you that yet. We do have an email that we're going to cover really quickly. So this is from our buddy Lee Ankrit, and the subject is live action video game adaptations. Lee says, "Hi guys, hope everyone is doing well. Video game adaptations seem to be doing well these days, for the most part. Fallout, The Last of Us, and The Witcher are all prime examples of high quality TV shows. Borderlands is due for release this year, so we'll see how that fares. But I do think movies tend to be less highly regarded, although I still absolutely love the Max Payne film. Anyway, are there any Batman video games you'd want to see adapted into either film or TV format? Which way around do you think works best? Video games adapted into live action or live action adapted into video games? Thanks, Lee. Lee, thank you for the email. And first of all, I know that, and I don't, who knows, by the time this releases, you could have a new baby. So good luck with that. Where thoughts and vibes going your way, man, from both of us. But great question. I would say The Last of Us is one of my favorite things that came out of TV in the last several years. I think that show is amazing. And my wife and I just finished Fallout, and I was very impressed with Fallout. I love Walton Goggins, so I was an easy lay for that. But I had never played the Fallout games, and it actually made me interested in wanting to play the games, which just like when I talk about like comic book movies or animated or live action, if they make me want to research the source material, that's the highest compliment I can give it. So I agree with you. Fallout, Last of Us, The Witcher season 1, great. I think it's been diminishing returns, but that's neither here nor there. But I think this is a really interesting question, Joe. I do think this is the golden age of video game adaptations.
It's the only age of video game
Well,
adaptations to an extent.
we've had
We've
video
always,
game adaptations for years, but they've
but
always
none of
been
them. Yeah,
crap.
it's been rough. When Mortal Kombat is like the regarded one, and it's not a great. I'm sorry, everyone loves that movie. I have a lot of nostalgia for that movie. It's not a great adaptation of the source material. I mean,
The
how do you make a Mortal?
90s Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, how do you make a Mortal Kombat movie PG-13? But I get it that they wanted to sell it. And at the time, that was how they did it. But as far as the question, and I echo Eric. I mean, Leah, we've been talking back and forth for a few days now, and I hope for your wife's sake and for your sake, I hope that baby is here now. Good luck with everything, bud. Definitely thinking about you. Um, so It's tough because it's not like a video game specifically for that story. Like if we were going to adapt a Batman video game, it would be, it would still just be a Batman story. I don't know if I'm not probably not saying this correctly, but like Borderlands is the video game. Batman isn't a video game. It's all taken from all different other sources. So you would basically be taking a story that was made specifically for a Batman video game. Now, I think something like an Arkham game might work more for like an HBO series than a
Mhm.
movie. I think that could be fun, whether it be I think the story for Arkham Origins is a lot of fun. I know that one
That's a
gets ragged on a lot. Um the
that's
gameplay I
exactly
know
where I
was
was gonna
quirky.
go.
Yeah, I know the gameplay itself is a little quirky and had some issues because it wasn't was it Rocksteady? It was
Yeah,
WB Games.
Montreal.
Um I'm sorry, Montreal. So I know the one that everyone is it Dark Tomorrow that had like an awesome story, but the gameplay was terrible. That was an old
Something like
video game
that.
of
Yeah.
Batman. So I think it's possible, but I still think with Batman, it's hard to do a direct adaptation of a video game. I think you're gonna wanna just adapt the characters into a story that fits better in that medium. As far as the film to video game or a video game to film, we have not had a lot of great video game adaptations of films. Um, did you ever play Batman Begins? I've heard that one was pretty fun, but I never did.
It was fun and it had a lot of things that I feel lent themselves later into the Arkham series.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, I actually one of my favorite Batman video games is Batman and Robin.
Oh.
On I want to say it was PlayStation. It was the first like free roaming Batman game. You could get in the Batmobile and just drive around Gotham. I don't know if
Hmm.
you ever played it because I know the movie was terrible and most people don't like the movie. I loved that video game. You could drive around Gotham and then go stop a robbery at the bank, and like you would get messages like he did in the movie on the Batmobile. You could go to the Batcave. It was a pretty fun game. I think it's on our little
Emulator?
emulator that we
Yeah.
got too. It's fun. It was a fun game, and you could save. It was PlayStation, so you could finally save a game, and I played that game all the time. Um, not a I don't remember like the story itself of the video game. I don't remember how much they really took from the movie. I just remember it being a really cool free roaming game where you can get in the Batmobile and drive around Gotham. So that's an example for me of an adaptation that was actually better than the movie. So that was really cool.
Mhm.
But I think it's tough when we're talking about Batman uh adapting a game to a movie.
I agree with you. I think the best bet would be Arkham Origins
Mhm.
because no matter what you say about the gameplay, I think the story is really interesting. Um, maybe change the ending where it's not Joker as the villain if you adapt it. Um, but I do believe going with that, and I'll tell you this, the cutscenes in Batman Arkham Origins are some of the most beautiful cutscenes I've ever seen in a video game.
And they're brutal. Like the
Yeah.
Bane stuff is brutal.
Yeah. So if you could, it would be way too expensive to do, but if you could do like an animated CG TV series in the style of those animated cutscenes with that story, I think that would be a great adaptation. But there's nobody that's going to spend that kind of money.
I'll even go a step further. Remember the commercial that they did with
Hmm.
Deathstroke hunting down Batman, and everyone used to use those scenes for the Batman Deathstroke movie with Ben Affleck, and they would like cut in stuff and like say like, oh, and people would actually like be tricked into thinking that that was like test
Yeah.
footage for the movie and stuff. And that footage is incredible. The way they did that commercial, or just I don't
Yeah.
remember if it was a commercial or just a YouTube thing, but it was incredible. And yeah, that had to have been so expensive. I couldn't even imagine how much that would cost to do a lot, an actual movie like that. But man, I would watch it in a second because it's great.
Yeah. And then Lee's final question here. Which way do you think works better? Games adapted into live action or live action adapted into video games? I'm going to go ahead and say for me, it's games adapted into live action. Just because of the situation we're in right now, because we're seeing it.
Yeah.
Live action adapted into video games generally tends not to work too good. I'm looking at Captain America, the first Avenger, or just some of these Batman Begins is kind of a different story because it wasn't widely praised, but it was good enough.
Mhm.
But a lot of times these games don't work well when they're adapted from movies. It's because a lot of times it's cheap tie-ins for the movie. They
Mhm.
don't spend a lot of time or put a lot of effort into it. It's just kind of a cash grab for the movie.
And also, I think the best video games have a great story. And if you've
Mhm.
already seen the movie and the story is just the movie, there's no fun in that. Or it's like you said, some cheap like side story that you don't even need for the movie. It's hard to really add to that.
Mhm.
Um, because if it's that good, it would be a movie. As sad as that is to say, they're not going to do like, a video game between Batman Begins and The Dark Knight. Like that would be fun, but if the story was good enough, they would have made it into something else, sadly.
Yeah.
So I'm with you there. I agree.
And last thing I'll say, Lee, I love you, brother, but Max Payne, that is not it.
I've actually never seen it, I don't think. I think I've seen like maybe the first few minutes. I think I only played the video games a little bit too. I wasn't crazy
Oh
about those.
man, I love those games as
That
a
was in
kid.
64? Was that
Ah,
era?
I it was on PlayStation as well, I think.
Okay. Yeah, so same thing though. Same.
Yeah, Max Payne, I really enjoyed the games, but man, that movie was bad. I'm
Mark
sorry,
Wahlberg?
Lee.
Mark
Yes.
Wahlberg, right? Yeah.
Yeah. But thank you so much, Lee. We really appreciate your email. And again, good luck with the birth there. For your wife's sake, I hope that's happening soon. Um, but Joe, I think that's a great place to put a pin in it for this episode. This has been a really fun one. Thank you for joining me once again, and as always. But why don't you let everybody know where they can find you on social media?
You guys can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, and Threads as J411, and you could find me on Facebook as Joe Fornarato, FORNAROTTO.
Fantastic. And as for myself, you can find my personal accounts on Instagram, X, and Letterboxd. That's me Carter89, me Carter89. The show can be found tfrbatpod. That's Instagram, Facebook, Threads, and X. Once again, if you'd like to send us an email, you can send those to tfrbatpod@gmail.com. We will read those on the show. If you're looking for a way to support the show, the best and easiest way to do that is to leave us a rating and review on whatever podcast platform you listen to us on. If you leave us a written review on Apple Podcasts, we will read those on the show. If you're looking for another way to support us, a great way to do that, we don't ask that you spend a dime on this show, but if you'd like to, you can go to redbubble.com, search Shop TFR, all one word, and you'll find our logos created by Justin Kowalski on all kinds of merchandise there. Make sure you take a moment to go to Organic Price Books. Not only will you save some money on those collected editions, but support us as you do so. Our theme song was created by Gaurav Venkateswar, and his music can be found on gbtunes.com. But that'll do it for this episode. Thank you guys so much once again for listening, and until we see you next time, make sure you keep that bat signal lit and pointed skyward. Batman was created by Bill Finger and Bob Kane and is the sole property of Warner Brothers Discovery. The Fire Rises, a Batman podcast, is in no way associated with DC Comics, DC Studios, or Warner Brothers Discovery. The thoughts and opinions of the participants of this show are their own and do not reflect the companies that they work for. Thank you for listening. We'll see you on the next episode.